Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
This is the moment when an entire off-season tilts on its axis, when speculation hardens into belief and belief starts to feel dangerously like reality. For months, the Toronto Blue Jays have been circling, hinting, watching from the shadows, and now, suddenly, the noise has changed. It is louder, sharper, more confident. This does not feel like idle interest anymore. This feels like intent. And for the first time all winter, it genuinely feels as though the Blue Jays are not just browsing the luxury aisle of free agency, but reaching for something that could redefine the franchise. Welcome back to the Blue Jays Report, because what has emerged over the last 24 hours changes everything. There is a particular electricity that only arrives when front office language shifts, when carefully guarded phrases soften just enough to let ambition leak through. Ross Atkins' press conference yesterday afternoon carried that unmistakable hum. The words themselves were measured, as they always are, but the tone was not. This was not the voice of an executive closing doors or managing expectations. This was the voice of someone leaving the lights on and the keys on the table, inviting possibility to walk straight in. And almost immediately after those comments settled, the reports began to arrive, one after another, like thunderclaps echoing the same message from different corners of the baseball world. Mitch Bannon of The Athletic did not merely whisper what he heard. He stated it plainly. The Toronto Blue Jays have increased their efforts to bring Kyle Tucker to Toronto. Increased their efforts. Those three words carry enormous weight in the language of baseball reporting. They imply urgency. They imply resources being reallocated. They imply conversations that have moved beyond curiosity and into commitment. This is no longer a courtesy call or a name on a whiteboard. This is pursuit. And when Bannon added that this escalation has come despite the signing of Kazuma Okamoto, it confirmed something even more important. The Jays are not finished. They are adapting, not retreating. What makes this development so compelling is not just the report itself, but the timing. Smoke has been building for weeks, but smoke only matters when it thickens into something you can no longer ignore. Robert Murray hinted. Bob Nightingale circled the idea. Ken Rosenthal added texture. Then Bannon arrived with clarity. The Blue Jays, according to league sources, have become more aggressive in their recruitment of Kyle Tucker. Not theoretical aggression. Active aggression. The kind that suggests Toronto has decided this is the swing worth taking. Kyle Tucker, in this narrative, begins to feel less like a free agent and more like a character walking through a story already written for him. A left-handed star with calm power, defensive elegance, and the kind of quiet dominance that transforms lineups without shouting for attention. He fits Toronto's roster like a final piece sliding into place, not awkwardly, but with a satisfying click. And that matters, because fit is often the difference between pursuit and inevitability. As if to underline the symbolism of it all, images surfaced of Tucker in attendance alongside George Springer and Michael Brantley. No, this is not a transaction. No, it does not mean a deal is imminent. But baseball has always thrived on subtext, and Springer, a man who knows exactly what Toronto can be at its best, does not stand beside former teammates by accident. Recruitment in modern baseball does not always happen in boardrooms. Sometimes it happens in conversations, in shared moments, in subtle reminders of what winning feels like. Then came Ben Nicholson-Smith, a voice that has often been cautious, even skeptical, throughout this off-season. His report mattered precisely because it did not feel inflated. The Blue Jays, he confirmed, have not closed the door on Kyle Tucker. More than that, they have had recent dialogue about parameters of a deal. Parameters. That word suggests numbers, years, structure. It suggests seriousness. It suggests Toronto is not simply dreaming, but planning. If you are enjoying this deep dive and want to stay ahead of every development as it unfolds, make sure you like the video, share it with fellow Jays fans, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report for daily updates. At this point, it becomes impossible to ignore the pattern. This is how major signings begin to crystallize. Those who remember the George Springer saga will recognize the rhythm instantly. Early doubt. Lingering distance. Then a subtle shift. Reports that feel warmer, more confident, more aligned. Back then, It ended with a signature that altered the trajectory of the franchise. Now, history feels as though it might be clearing its throat, preparing to speak again. Another layer emerged late last night, when Jim Duquette reported that the Mets, Dodgers, and Blue Jays are currently the most aggressive suitors for Kyle Tucker. That matters for two reasons. First, Toronto is no longer framed as an outsider hoping for chaos. They are in the room. Second, Duquette noted that there is distance between these three and the rest of the field. This is no longer a crowded market. It is a focused one. And when markets narrow, decisions accelerate. Ross Atkins' words now feel different when replayed in this context. If there's a way to make our organization and team better, we will do that. On paper, that sounds generic. In reality, it reads like permission. It reads like ownership alignment. It reads like the subtle acknowledgement that this roster, already strong, is being positioned for something bolder. Toronto is no longer behaving like a team hedging its bets. It is behaving like a team that believes its window is open right now. What makes this pursuit so fascinating is how clean it feels. Kyle Tucker slides into the outfield without forcing uncomfortable concessions elsewhere. He balances the lineup. He lengthens it. He future-proofs it. Unlike more complicated scenarios involving infield congestion or positional compromises, Tucker simply makes sense. And sometimes, sense is the most persuasive argument of all. There is also a psychological dimension here that should not be overlooked. This is a Blue Jays organization still carrying the weight of a Game 7 loss, a moment frozen in collective memory. Edward Rogers' reaction that night said everything without words. According to reports, his first call after that defeat was to Mark Shapiro, followed by a meeting the very next day. "We go back to work," Shapiro said. And they have. Every signing since has felt deliberate. Every move has carried intent. Kyle Tucker would not just be a player acquisition. He would be a statement of response. Imagine what that statement would sound like across the American League. Toronto, already formidable, choosing not to sit still. Toronto deciding that good is not enough. Toronto pairing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with another franchise-level talent in his prime. That is how perceptions shift. That is how clubs stop being interesting and start being feared. And if you want to see how this story unfolds in real time, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report, because this is the kind of moment fans will remember years from now. Nothing is done yet. No contracts have been signed. No press conferences scheduled. Duquette himself cautioned that nothing is imminent. But inevitability rarely announces itself loudly. It builds quietly, piece by piece, until suddenly it feels obvious in hindsight. The smoke around Kyle Tucker is no longer drifting. It is gathering. And Toronto is standing right at the center of it. This offseason has already reshaped the identity of the Blue Jays. The tone is sharper. The ambition clearer. The patience more purposeful. Whether or not Kyle Tucker ultimately wears blue and white, this pursuit alone signals something important. The Blue Jays believe they are one move away from something special. And belief, when backed by action, has a way of becoming reality. For now, all we can do is watch, analyze, and wait. But make no mistake, this is no longer a passive wait. This is the tense pause before a reveal. And if the next chapter includes Kyle Tucker stepping into a Rogers Center roaring with expectation, this winter will be remembered as the moment Toronto decided to go all in. Stay locked in with the Blue Jays Report, because if this story breaks, you will hear it here first.